In the eastern part of Nigeria, by the foot of the great Enugu hills and beside thick forests, lay a village called Umuagu. The people there lived by old traditions that had been passed down for many generations. The elders were respected as wise leaders, and the villagers followed the customs and sayings of their ancestors. But one tradition filled every pregnant woman with fear: the practice of killing twins. Twins, they believed, were a curse, an abomination sent to destroy the harmony of the land. The elders decreed that such children must be taken to the evil forest, where their spirits would be left to wander, never to return. It was said that if twins were allowed to live, they would bring calamity to the village. The women bore this burden silently, praying fervently that their pregnancies would bring only one child into the world. On a warm evening, as the sun set behind the hills, the village square buzzed with activity. Young men returned from the farms with heavy baskets of yams, and children chased each other around the communal fire. Yet, beneath the surface of this lively scene, a shadow of fear lingered. Every now and then, a woman would glance at her growing belly, her expression betraying her inner troubles. The fear of giving birth to twins, the ultimate curse, was ever present. Adanna was a bride of just 6 months, her laughter as warm as the morning sun. Her husband, Obinna, was a skilled blacksmith known for his steady hands and kind heart. Together, they shared dreams of a future filled with love and children. Adanna's beauty was matched only by her strength. She was the kind of woman who could turn a barren field into a thriving garden. One evening, as they sat outside their mud hut, watching the stars, Obinna placed a hand on her stomach and smiled. "You will give me a strong son, Adanna?" he said, his voice filled with hope. She laughed and playfully swatted his arm. "And what if it's a girl?" she teased. "Then she will be as beautiful and wise as her mother," he replied, pulling her closer. They sat in silence, dreaming of the child who would soon join their family. But in the quiet of her heart, Adanna prayed. She prayed for a healthy child, just one, to spare her from the horror she dared not voice aloud. One night, as the village lay covered in darkness, Adanna was visited by a dream unlike any she had ever known. She found herself in a misty forest, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and blooming flowers. A soft glow illuminated the trees, and from the shadows emerged a woman clad in a flowing blue gown. Her presence was both calming and commanding, her eyes deep pools of wisdom. "Adanna," the woman said, her voice like the gentle rustle of leaves. "You carried twins in your womb, a gift and a destiny." Adanna's heart raced. Twins? The word echoed in her mind, each syllable a blow to the heart. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "It cannot be." The woman stepped closer, placing a comforting hand on Adanna's shoulder. "You must leave this village. They will not understand. You must go to Umuagu, where you and your children will be safe." "Umuagu?" Adanna repeated, confusion mingling with fear. She had heard tales of Umuagu, a distant land where traditions were different, but it seemed impossibly far. The woman smiled gently. "Do not be afraid. The path will not be easy, but you will find help along the way. Trust in your strength, and trust in the destiny of your children." Before Adanna could ask more, the forest began to fade, and she awoke with a start, her body drenched in sweat. The dream felt so real that she could still feel the woman's touch. She placed a trembling hand on her belly and whispered, "Twins?" The morning sun filtered through the thatched roof, casting patterns on the walls of the hut. Adanna sat on her mat, her mind racing. The dream had shaken her to her core. Twins. If the elders discovered her secret, they would take her babies to the evil forest, and there would be nothing she could do to stop them. She glanced at Obinna, who was still asleep, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. Should she tell him? No. The risk was too great. If he knew, he might feel the need to inform the elders. It was his duty as a man of the village. The thought of betrayal, even unintentional, was too much to bear. Instead, she decided to keep the dream to herself. But what could she do? Umuagu seemed like an impossible destination, a place she had only heard of in passing. Yet the woman in blue had been so certain, so reassuring. Adanna decided she would do whatever it took to protect her children, even if it meant leaving everything she knew behind. As the days passed, Adanna began to prepare in secret. She started by hiding small portions of food from their daily meals, tucking them away in a gourd. Each morning she told herself that she would find a way to reach Umuagu, even if she had to walk barefoot through the wilderness. The village was abuzz with preparations for the shrine ceremony, a sacred ritual where expectant mothers sought blessings for their unborn children. Adanna had attended the ceremony before, but never as a participant. This year she would kneel before the shrine, her growing belly a visible sign of her impending motherhood. "Adanna, have you chosen your offering for the gods?" asked Neka, her childhood friend, as they pounded yam together in the courtyard. Adanna nodded, holding up a small basket of colonnuts and a calabash of palm oil. "I have," she said, forcing a smile. But her heart was heavy. The shrine ceremony was more than a blessing. It was also a time when the priests would commune with the spirits to discern the future of the unborn child. What if they discovered her secret? She could already hear the whispers of the elders, the accusations, the doom that would follow. "You look troubled," Neka said, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "It is nothing," Adanna replied quickly. But the weight of her secret threatened to crush her. She needed to act soon before it was too late. The night before the ceremony, a traveling seer visited Umuagu. The villagers gathered in the square, eager to hear his words. The seer, an elderly man with a long white beard, raised his staff and spoke in a voice that seemed to echo from the heavens. "A womb carries blessings and curses," he declared. "Two lives will bring great change, but only if they survive the trials ahead." The crowd murmured, some in awe, others in fear. Adanna's heart pounded. Could he be speaking of her? She looked around nervously, but no one seemed to suspect her. "Who are these two lives?" an elder asked. The seer shook his head. "The spirits have not revealed all. But beware, not all who smile at you are your friends." Adanna's resolve hardened. She could not wait any longer. The dream, the prophecy, the looming ceremony, everything pointed to one truth. She had to leave. As the first rays of dawn lit the sky, Adanna sat by the fire, her resolve firm. The ceremony was mere hours away, but she knew she could not face the shrine. The risk of discovery was too great. Her heart ached at the thought of leaving Obinna, but she told herself it was for his safety too. If the elders learned of her escape, they would interrogate him. The less he knew, the better. "Adanna, you seem restless," Obinna said, emerging from the hut. He stretched, his tall frame silhouetted against the rising sun. "I am only thinking of the ceremony," she replied, her voice steady despite the storm in her heart. He kissed her forehead. "The gods will bless our child. Do not worry." She nodded, unable to meet his eyes. As he left to tend to his forge, Adanna whispered a silent goodbye. She retrieved the gourd of food she had hidden and tucked it into her cloth wrap. It was time to put her plan into motion. Adanna walked to the edge of the village, her pace unhurried to avoid suspicion. She carried a small basket, its contents deliberately sparse to maintain the appearance of a routine trip to the farm. As she was leaving, she met Neka. "Adanna, where are you going?" called Neka, who was sweeping the compound. "To the farm," Adanna replied, forcing a smile. "I need to gather some vegetables for the evening meal." Neka nodded, satisfied with the answer. Adanna's heart raced as she continued down the dusty path. Each step felt like a betrayal, but she reminded herself of the woman in blue and the prophecy. Her children's lives depended on her courage. As she reached the forest's edge, she retrieved the supplies she had hidden. The forest loomed before her, dark and forbidding, but it was her only chance. With a deep breath, she stepped into the shadows. Adanna paused to take one last look at Umuagu. The village lay peaceful in the morning light, its thatched roofs and clay walls standing as a symbol of generations of strength and endurance. She turned away, tears blurring her vision, and stepped into the dense forest. Adanna slipped out of her small bundle she had prepared. The path to the forest was eerily quiet, the air thick with the sounds of nocturnal creatures. She felt the weight of every step, her heart heavy with the knowledge of what she was leaving behind. The forest itself was alive with the sounds of birds and the rustle of leaves. Adanna moved cautiously, her ears taking in every sound. She had heard stories of wild animals and spirits that roamed the woods, but she had no choice. Adanna could no longer delay her escape. The prophecy had sealed her decision. As she moved through the forest, she recalled her last moments before leaving Umuagu. She had spent the last few days pretending that everything was normal while secretly preparing for her departure. Each morning she walked to the farm with a woven basket, telling Adanna she was tending to their crops. Instead, she buried supplies in the thick bushes near the forest edge: dried fish, yams, a small clay pot of water, and a blanket. On the final evening before the shrine ceremony, Adanna sat with Adanna under the moonlit sky. He spoke excitedly of their child, dreaming aloud of the family they would become. His joy was a knife in her heart. "Adanna," she said softly, interrupting his thoughts, "do you ever think about other lands? Places far from here?" He looked at her curiously. "Why would I, Adanna? Umuagu is our home. Everything we need is here." She nodded, hiding her sorrow. She could not tell him the truth. The love she bore for him clashed with the need to protect her unborn children. That night, as Adanna slept, she kissed his forehead one last time and whispered, "Forgive me, my love." Adanna walked through the night, her senses very alert. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig made her pause, her hand instinctively going to her belly. The forest seemed alive, watching her, testing her will. As dawn broke, she stumbled upon a clearing and collapsed against a tree. She was very tired, and for the first time since her escape, she allowed herself to rest. Adanna awoke to the sound of a machete slicing through the grasses. Her eyes snapped open and she saw a man approaching. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his hands rough from years of hard labor. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice wary but not unkind. Adanna scrambled to her feet, holding her bundle very tight. "I mean no harm," she said quickly. "I am fleeing my village, to protect my unborn children." The man's gaze softened as he noticed her swollen belly. "What are you running from?" Adanna hesitated, then decided to trust him. "I carry twins," she admitted. "If I stay, they will be taken to the evil forest." The man nodded solemnly. "You are brave to leave," he said. "I am Chikwudi, a farmer. These woods are dangerous for someone like you. I will guide you part of the way." Relief washed over Adanna. For the first time since her journey began, she was not alone. "Rest here for a while. You look really tired." Grateful, Adanna sat on a log and accepted a bowl of water he offered. For the first time since leaving the village, she felt a glimmer of hope. Chikwudi led Adanna through the dense forest, his machete clearing a path. He moved with ease, his familiarity with the terrain evident in his confident steps. Adanna followed closely, her tired feet stumbling over roots and rocks. "Are you heading to Umuagu?" Chikwudi asked during a brief rest. "Yes," Adanna replied. "It is the only place where my children will be safe." Chikwudi nodded. "Umuagu is far, but it is a good place. The people there value life differently." As they continued, Chikwudi shared stories of his life as a farmer, his voice a soothing balm to Adanna's tense nerves. She found strength in his companionship, her fear giving way to determination. With every step, the memory of Umuagu faded, replaced by the hope of a new beginning. As dusk fell, Adanna and Chikwudi made camp near a stream. The fire crackled, its light casting flickering shadows on the trees. Adanna couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, but she dismissed it as paranoia. "You must be careful," Chikwudi warned. "The forest is not just home to animals. There are those who would harm travelers." "What kind of people?" Adanna asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Bandits," he replied grimly. "They prey on the vulnerable." Adanna shivered, clutching her wrap tighter. She prayed that the woman in blue would continue to guide her. Late into the night, as they took turns keeping watch, Adanna heard a rustling in the bushes. She froze, her hand instinctively reaching for a stick by the fire. "Who's there?" Chikwudi called, his voice firm. A man emerged, holding a spear. His face was stern but not unkind. "I mean no harm," he said. "I am Emeka, a hunter. I've been tracking a wounded antelope and saw your fire." Chikwudi relaxed slightly. "Join us then." The forest is no place to be alone at night. Emeka sat by the fire, his presence both reassuring and intimidating. Adanna sensed that he was a man of great skill, someone who could be an ally on her dangerous journey. "Where are you headed?" Emeka asked, glancing at Adanna. "To Ugwu," she replied, meeting his gaze. Adanna hesitated before speaking. "I carry twins," she said quietly. "I am fleeing my village to save them." Emeka's expression softened. "You are brave," he said. "These woods are dangerous, but I know them well. I will join you on your journey." The hunter nodded. "Then you will need more than luck. You will need strength and guidance." Adanna felt a surge of gratitude. Her companions were growing, and with them her chances of survival. With Chikwudi and Emeka by her side, she began to believe they might reach Ugwu after all. With Emeka the hunter joining their group, Adanna felt a renewed sense of security. The dense forest, once a maze of looming shadows, now seemed less scary with Emeka's guidance. He moved with precision, his keen eyes spotting hidden dangers. A cluster of poisonous snakes coiled in a tree, a tangle of thorny vines that could have caught Adanna's legs, and even the faint tracks of leopards prowling nearby. "You must always listen to the forest," Emeka said one evening as they rested by a small stream. "It speaks to those who pay attention." Adanna nodded, though the forest's whispers still sounded like ominous creaks and groans to her. She cupped water in her hands and drank, her parched throat grateful for the cool relief. Emeka roasted a small antelope he had hunted earlier, while Chikwudi fetched firewood. The smell of cooking meat filled the air, and for a moment, Adanna allowed herself to feel a glimmer of hope. But the journey ahead was long, and danger lurked in the darkness. Emeka warned them to rest lightly and be ready to move at the slightest sign of trouble. In the dead of night, Adanna awoke to the sound of snapping twigs. Her heart raced as she nudged Chikwudi and Emeka awake. Emeka was instantly alert, his hand gripping his bow. "Stay behind me," he whispered, notching an arrow. From the shadows emerged three figures, their faces partially obscured by the flickering firelight. They were rough-looking men, armed with machetes and a menacing air. "Travelers," one of them said, his voice dripping with malice. "Hand over your belongings and we won't harm you." Emeka stepped forward, his bow drawn and steady. "We have nothing worth your trouble," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Let us pass." The leader laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "And what if we take the woman?" he sneered, eyeing Adanna. Before he could move, Emeka's arrow flew, striking the machete from the man's hand. "The next one will pierce your heart," Emeka said coldly. The other two men hesitated, clearly unnerved. Chikwudi brandished his machete, stepping protectively in front of Adanna. "Leave now," he growled. After a tense moment, the men retreated into the shadows, muttering curses under their breath. Adanna let out a shaky breath, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Danger is never far in these woods," Emeka said, lowering his bow. "We must move before they return with others." The next day, as the sun rose over the forest canopy, the group came upon a towering palm tree. High in its branches was a man with a slender build, skillfully climbing to harvest sap. He worked with such ease that it seemed as though he was born to the tree. Chikwudi called out to him, "Brother, can you spare us some wine to quench our thirst?" The man paused, looking down. His face broke into a friendly smile as he descended the tree with practiced speed, carrying a calabash filled with fresh palm wine. "Travelers, I see," he said, handing them the drink. "I am Yuzo, a palm wine tapper. What brings you to this part of the forest?" Adanna, weary from the journey, hesitated before speaking. "We are heading to Ugwu," she said. "I seek refuge for my unborn children." Yuzo's eyes widened with understanding. "You carry twins?" he asked softly. When Adanna nodded, his expression turned solemn. "You are brave to take this journey. Many would not dare." Yuzo offered to guide them to a safer path through the forest. "The woods ahead are treacherous," he said. "But I know a way that will take you to the edge of Ugwu." With Yuzo joining their group, Adanna felt her burden lighten. The palm wine tapper's cheerful demeanor brought a sense of humor to their journey, his stories of forest life distracting her from her worries. "Did I ever tell you about the time I climbed the tallest palm tree in the forest?" Yuzo began, his voice animated. "Only 3 times since we met you," Chikuti teased, rolling his eyes but smiling. The group shared a rare laugh, the sound echoing through the forest. For the first time in days, Adanna felt a glimmer of peace. She realized that these men, Chikuti, Emeka, and Yuzo, had become more than companions. They were her protectors, her lifeline. That night, as they camped by a riverbank, Adanna expressed her gratitude. "You risked your lives for me and my children," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I will never forget your kindness." Chikuti placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You are not alone in this, Adanna," he said. "We will see you safely to Ugwu." As dawn broke over the riverbank, Adanna awoke to the sound of rushing water and the chirping of birds. Yuzo had already begun gathering firewood, while Emeka inspected the edges of his arrows. Chikuti sat near the water, deep in thought. "The river is alive," Yuzo said, joining them with a grin. "They say spirits dwell in its depths." Adanna shivered slightly. "Spirits?" she asked, glancing at the glistening water. "Good spirits if you respect them," Yuzo replied. "But beware, they do not take kindly to trespassers or greed." As they prepared to cross the river, Yuzo knelt by its edge, murmuring a prayer and pouring a small libation of palm wine into the water. "For safe passage," he explained. The crossing was very dangerous and the current was stronger than it had appeared. Emeka waded in first, guiding the group with a rope tied to a sturdy tree. Adanna clung to Chikuti's arm, her heart pounding with every step. The icy water reached her waist, but with the men's help they made it to the other side.